next step in the evolution of music is using the most using the most nimble part of the human body, the tongue. The tongue is actually just a muscle. It's just a muscle. That's all it is. It's just a muscle. But it's a very special muscle because it's not attached to anything on either ends, right? It's only attached on one end. In the middle, right there. Like fingers. Say this. Let's take this finger, right? If I want to do an action like this, right? If I want to do that and then roll it up, or do that, extend down, right? This muscle has to be into gear. This muscle has to be into gear, and then all the muscles in the fingers. I mean, it's like a crazy fucking mess out there. All these singular muscles, and all of them are bound. Like this finger can't go beyond there because there's muscles blocking it. There's bones blocking it, right? No matter what. But the tongue has no restrictions like that. You can whip your tongue from side to side way faster than I can move my finger. Look, this is basically as fast as I can move my finger this distance. Or like, let's say in and out. Right, how fast can I move my finger in and out? About that fast, right? It's not that fast, but compared to my tongue. And I never practiced that. And I'm supposed to be a musician. It's supposed to be all about playing fast, right? Playing fast. Right? But my tongue, way faster. And just because stupid idiots got that tongue movement confused with like weird sex shit, I don't think, I see the confusion, but that's not at all what I'm talking about. I'm talking about music. Because we're always trying to transcend our physical limits with music. As soon as you pick up an instrument, you're extending your being and embracing another instrument, right? But we're held back because we only really have these are like the most nimble parts of our body, and in some people's cases they use their feet as well, like drummers or organ players. Pipe organ players use their feet as well. Some people use their fists if you're like playing that one thing, that really big bell instrument. I don't know what it's called. But most of the time, violinists, that's all in your wrists, and your air control is for like flutes and what am I doing here? What is this? This is like a clarinet or something. Right, clarinets, flutes, all the woodwinds and brasses and stuff. It's mostly comes down to breath control and finger dexterity. So when there's no breath control, it's just finger dexterity. That's a string instrument, right? Or piano, which is again just pure finger dexterity with a very minimal work from the feet. That's how almost every instrument that I can think of works. But I feel like we've reached there's untapped potential for tongue instruments because tongues can be way more nimble than most of our other body parts. If someone designed an instrument around the tongue, then perhaps we could make some crazy music that's never been heard before. There's a big problem with this though, because the tongue's biggest limitation is the fact that it's encased on all sides. I can do this, and now my tongue is stuck in that tiny little place. And there's no instruments I can play in there. So all I can do is open this, and it gives me one angle where my tongue can come out of the front. So then I'd be able to hit like a tiny thing over here maybe. But what I'm saying is, for this type of music to exist, to be born, would require surgery. That person would have to have had their lower jaw taken off, essentially. That's the only, or at least part of the lower jaw taken off around here. And possibly some of the upper jaw, this bit, the top plate, I don't know what it's called, removed. To be able to play this amazing hypothetical instrument, like just with their tongues. And also they would have to train all day because your tongue gets tired pretty quickly because we don't train it for longer than like 15 minutes, 20 minutes meals, and talking as well. But talking is very a language tends towards systems. Languages tend to be, uh, in a sense, focusing towards what is the least effort to communicate the most information, right? Because if it's just too difficult, physically too difficult to say something, uh, that is, or if it just takes too much time to say something, then that word gets written over. Like cannot became can't, right? Those sorts of things. But then sometimes they happen all with stuff that we don't even know. Like a lot of the time, that's just how words evolved in the first place. Like I don't know. If you read some Shakespeare or older writings, you see a lot of the word "or" instead of "over." It means the same thing, but they're just skipping it out because it's too much trouble, and everyone understands, and that's just a linguistic thing. I mean, I forgot what it's called. It's like a dialect, basically, that everyone, it's not official, but everyone understands that if someone says they mean over there or something, right? Or y'all, right? No one says all of you in Texas. They say y'all because it's quicker and easier, and eventually language condenses into what's quickest and easiest. That's why music does the same. Music takes new technologies and mangles them in any way, but yet music technology for body modification has not really been developed. Like we had the castratos. If you don't know about them, you should look them up. The castratos are pretty cool. But then what else? You got the castratos. You got, I guess, this kind of comes into a more sociological part of this equation, which is certain fashion senses for in the society change the way that musicians may look, including things like body modifications. For example, if you're a goth, you're going to probably have a lot of piercings, and when I'm doing that, probably not piercing your finger, but you might have piercings in lots of places, on your mouth, on your eyebrow or something, in here. Septum piercings I see a lot these days. It's like a signifier. But so that's the sociological part of art is also a part of art, but no one's taken those two and synthesized them. The sociological body morphologicism. The sociological body morphologicism. Is that what I'm talking about? Is that the words that I'm trying to say? Sociological aspects and the body morphological aspects. I'm trying to keep my language together here, but it's tricky. These words are big. And just combine them, find some sort of synthesis. Find something between them, and that's where the guy who cuts his jaw off so he can play tongue music better comes in. That's where he comes in, and that is where it's going. So I just want to make sure you all understand that. Once again, cut off the bottom jaw, so it's just a free hanging tongue, basically. With a bit of practice, you could become incredibly nimble with your tongue, and who knows what sorts of crazy music's going to be invented, musical instruments for the tongue. But it's got to happen, because the tongue is like the only other part of the body that's not being used for music. Some people use their elbows and stuff for music, a bit of that. Some people use their knees for music. Mostly it's all the fingers though, almost entirely fingers and breath control, right? And I guess lips as well, in the case of brass instruments. And I think the flute has some lip stuff as well. I'm not that well versed in these sorts of instruments, but most instruments are still focused on the hands. Only rare exceptions. This is in the Western musical canon, of course. This is in the Western musical canon. I'm sure there's crazy instruments out there in the world that are way above our disgusting human hands and shit. They're probably miles ahead of us somewhere. But I've looked and I don't see that much. I mean, most of it's like either percussion instruments. One of the great examples of this sort of thing is the Indian drumming, the talking drum style, where they'll use their fingers. You know, when we think of a drummer, if you say to someone, "I'm a drummer" in the West, here's what you think, right? Basically, just these two limbs, and then a kick, right? And if you think of like bongos, well, even bongos, that's like, it's like still these just two fingers, right? Even though, or just these two appendages. Even though they'll use this part and that part. Now in bongos, we've already added an extra level of dexterity, but in these Indian talking drums, they use every finger. They'll go I don't know shit about it. I'm not an expert, but I highly recommend listening to it. They manipulate the drums as they're drumming to change the pitch, which is why it's called a talking drum. And they play with their fingers, which means they can play these super incredible and technical rhythms that you can never really match with just two sticks. But, like, where's it going? Why is no one taking that and being like, wow, people got really good at that, and this is clearly an effective way of making music? Why haven't we heard it in other experimental music? Why haven't we had someone, I don't know, take someone who is a well-learned hand drummer in India, give them a piece of equipment that can discern basically a miniaturized drum pad, like a drum pad, but it has lots of different things on it, and you could be some sort of mixture of finger DJing. Oh, fuck, all these words are slipping my mind right now, but you know, like controllerism type stuff, like what Madion does or Sean Wasabi does. But imagine that, but with the influence of these finger style drummers. Oh, it'd be so sick. But we're never gonna see it because people are too stupid. As usual, people are too stupid to understand. You're gonna have some crazy shit going on. What if you put pad, one person, pad, another person, right? And then they do this, right? Each pad has a sound it can play when it's played against. Look how much control is in this, okay? So I've got you could even do this with just two gloves, right? With little sensors on each of the top of the fingers, right? So I've got two gloves, and if I do this, that's one sound. If I do this, that's another sound. This, another sound. This, another sound, right? But then also, what if I do like this, for example? Already, that's a crazy sound that we would get in there. What if I was to do, I don't know. There's all sorts of dexterity ones you could do. Like, what would it sound like if I did this with all three at the same time? Or all four at the same time? But then, the other hand is the same thing. So you got this 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got this 1, 2, 3, 4. But then, what if I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? You see what I'm saying? Now, we're creating all sorts of crazy textures with my instrument hands. You see? And that's all that just comes from dexterity and knowing how to use it. Instead of having a really long instrument, instead of having that, you just have the hands themselves interacting with the hands themselves. So I could be going like on one hand, and on the other hand I could be like, and I could be playing crazy chords. You know, you could like imagine if you could just program it so that everything like that is just a tone cluster or something. Or maybe you could have drums on one hand and like melody on another hand. I mean, you might think this sounds ridiculous, like a ridiculous instrument that could never exist, right? But if you ever looked into stenography, like professional stenographers, how they have to learn how to do that shit, all the shortcut commands, and they do it like well, and it's like not even that hard. You can do a training course on it and go and do it, right? It's a thing that people do, and they're not like genius people. They're just regular people. Imagine if I was in charge. Imagine if insane people like me and you and all of our friends were in charge, and then we could like learn something like that and create a crazy new musical instrument that would revolutionize everything. Which is why I think it's not that weird to just cut the bit of your chin off, you know. But ideally, I obviously the question at the end of this is, okay, why don't you just do it yourself? Well, firstly, the instrument to play with my tongue doesn't exist yet, and I don't have the technical know-how to make it. So I'd have to already I'd need to make friends with those people before I went about cutting off my jaw. However, the other thing is that ideally I wouldn't want to just have no jaw. I would want to have, because it's how do I put it? Unsafe. It makes it very difficult to do things like eat food when things are just falling out the bottom. So I'd want a bionic jaw, like a cybernetic jaw, right? Which could then be a prosthetic jaw is the word I'm looking for. A prosthetic jaw that would connect to where my old jaw went, but when I need to perform, it would just swing back, and I would just it would just swing back out the way or something, or just contract, or I could just take it off even, and that would be the most simple answer would just be I could just take it off, and then bam, doing all my jaw stuff, and then I could just put my electronic jaw back on. It'd be sick, and there's no reason for that not to happen, other than you people are pussies, and you don't have. I mean, look, I love all you people. I hate all. Oh, it's fucking tiring being me. I lose track of where things are, who things are. How much vape have I got left in here? Well, the world is very bright outside of the sunglasses. Not much. Here's my two other vapes. They are kiwi and lemon, I believe. I think I'm gonna give it a shot. Maybe I should make this a live stream as well. Considering it. Maybe I should just call someone else up. I bet Plunder is awake. Yo, we wanna do some content. Yo, you wanna do some content? Fuck. I'm gonna just call him up and see what's going on. You won't be able to hear his side of the conversation. I don't think so, at least. You shouldn't be able to. Hello? 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 What the fuck? This is very confusing. Is it ringing? Can't hear anything. Test. Okay, that's working. This is very confusing right now. I'm just trying to be elite hacksaw and figure shit out, but it just won't work. He's probably just not in. It's just confusing me because there's no like ringtone, like it normally does like a ringtone. It's very strange. What happens if I disable streamer mode? Oh, now I can hear him. That's weird. Okay, so it was only because I had streamer mode on for some strange reason. But I'm not even streaming, that's the thing. I'm not even streaming. Let me try this dude. I think that's a no. I think everyone's away right now. Unless Star is here. Seems not to be. Yeah, no. No one wants to call right now. So I guess I'm just fucked. Guess I'm just all alone. I'm not entirely sure what's happening right now. I think I'm gonna stop this recording.